So a very warm welcome to all of you. We are so glad to have you join us for our monthly webinar series on African voices on intercultural competence. And we're so delighted to be joined by so many from all over the world, almost every continent. So my name is Darla Deerdorf, and I am the chair holder of this UNESCO chair on intercultural competence, and I am joined by my colleagues on the team. We have, so with the chair, we have two co-chairs, Dr. Precious Simba, who is here with us, and you'll be hearing from her also, and then Dr. Davinia Jitu, who is at the Durban University of Technology. And then we also have Werner, who is our coordinator. And then you'll see names of our other members of our core team of the chair, based at Stellenbosch University, just outside of Cape Town, South Africa. You'll also see there our email for the team and our website. And so we invite you to reach out to us. We'd love to get you more involved in the work of our UNESCO chair. So as part of our goal to raise awareness and identify and elevate African voices on intercultural competence, we are involved in a number of different projects, one of which is this monthly webinar. And we're so glad you can join us, and we hope you'll join us again next month as well. Another project that we're all involved in with this UNESCO chair is something called UNESCO Story Circles. And this is coming from UNESCO as an intercultural methodology with the purpose of developing and practicing key intercultural competencies. And so we have been doing story circles at Stellenbosch University and across South Africa and the continent. And I just, some of my students are joining us today. I'm teaching a summer course here at Harvard University, and we just did story circles last week in our course here. So they're being used all over. And so we invite you to have a look at this. If you're not familiar, it's available through an open access manual and over 6 different languages. And we'd be happy to talk with you more about UNESCO Story Circles as well. So that is one of the projects that our chair is working on. We also want to invite you to join one of our partners. So we have many partners around the world with our UNESCO chair. One of our partners is a global nonprofit called the World Council on Intercultural and Global Competence. Membership is entirely free in the World Council. We are joined today by quite a few World Council members, so we're glad that you are joining us too. And you simply need to go to this website, iccglobal.org, complete a brief online membership form so you can be sent an invitation link to World Council's online community. There's thousands of members in World Council from all over the world, and many are involved in working groups, which are at the heart of the World Council. And one of those working groups is ICC in Africa. And we are joined today by quite a few members of the ICC in Africa working group. And anyone is welcome to join this group through the World Council. And so we hope that many of you will become members of the World Council and join the ICC in Africa working group, which is coordinated by Werner here, as well as Davinia and one other of their colleagues, Huba. So the other piece that we want to invite all of you to is, as I mentioned, our webinar next month, which features Miss Karina Dutuig speaking on Living Ubuntu, how Stellenbosch University is connecting people, the planet, and purpose. And so you'll get to hear from one of our colleagues at Stellenbosch about what this looks like within a university. So we invite all of you to join us next month on August 20. We also want to extend a very warm invitation to each of you to join us in person for our annual intercultural conference. This year, it will be in Rabat, Morocco, and on September 29 through October 2. And we're featuring particularly youth voices as part of this conference. There's going to be a day-long youth global leadership workshop as part of this conference, as well as a UNESCO Story Circles training and sessions presented by colleagues from all around the continent. So we're really excited about this conference, and we look forward to having many of you join us in person in Rabat at the end of September. Please do note that the early bird registration ends August 10th, so it's coming up soon. You can still register after that at the regular registration rates. So we're really excited about this. Our first inaugural conference was held last year in Nairobi. And the conference will be moving around the continent, and we're excited to be in Morocco for this year's conference. So hope to see you there.
Thanks, Darla. So,
yeah, so over to Werner to introduce today's speaker.
Yes, thank you. And before I do that, I just want to remind you that we are recording this session. So if you do not want your face to be on the recording, you're welcome to switch off your camera. And we also welcome you to post any questions for the speaker in chat. We will, Dr. Precious Simba will go through those questions afterwards. So as the webinar goes on, if you think of any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, or afterwards there'll be an opportunity to raise your hand and to ask any questions that you might have for today's speaker. So without further ado, I have the privilege of introducing today's speaker, Dr. George Mutalemwa. He is the founding director of the Africa Peace and Development Network. Now I need to try and say the correct word. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. George. Mtandao wa Amani na Maendeleo Africa, which also translates into Mama. And he is also the Senior Research Fellow at St. Augustine University of Tanzania. He has served as the Hoffman Lecturer for Intercultural Competences at the University of Wetzlar, Germany, Executive Secretary of the Association of Catholic Universities and Higher Institutes of Africa and Madagascar, and also the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at SAUT, Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Sociology and Development, co-editor of Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, Conflicts and Peace-Oriented Conflict Resolution, and Peace as Non-Violence, Topics in Africa Peace Studies. And I'll post this in the chat also. So, Dr. George, we're really looking forward to your talk today, and I will stop sharing and give over to you to go ahead. Thank you. There we go.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Werner, for this warm welcome and introduction. And it's a pleasure having you all. And I thank you for your time, for being with us. For me, it's a great honor and privilege to be with you. And I'm going to talk about intercultural competencies for peace building in Africa, road to global peace. And I would like to begin by saying a little bit about how I came into intercultural competencies. And then I will link that with this new organization or network known as Africa Peace and Development Network. And I will use a theory also to explain how we developed this network based on this theory. Oh, sorry, the slide isn't moving again, sorry. I'm afraid I can't move the slides. For some reason, my computer's got stuck.
No problem. You can try and share it again.
Let me try one more time.
If you try and click there on the bottom arrow, that's how I try to change the slide. I know with Zoom sometimes it's giving us issues.
Yeah, my arrows are not moving.
There's been a suggestion, maybe to post the slides in chat.
Yes,
Or-
yes. Can you quickly, or you can just quickly send it to me, George, then I'll share it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We
Thank
did.
you. Sorry about that.
No, he did suggest doing it at the start, so don't worry. We are very informal here. We go with the flow.
Apologies. Let me try and send it to you.
Perfect.
In the meantime, thanks to everyone who's been introducing themselves in the chat. That's phenomenal. It's wonderful to have all of you here from so many different places.
Just wanted to say the same thing.
And just a note that the discussion from today's webinar will continue next week at this time in the ICC and Africa Working Group through the World Council. So we invite all of you back next week at this time to continue the discussion. Usually there's so much to continue discussing that it kind of flows into the week after at the ICC and Africa Working Group. And we invite all of you to join that. It's free to join through the World Council on Intercultural and Global Competence. And we'll post information in chat about how you can join. So yeah, we welcome all of you to ask questions today. We'll have a discussion following Dr. George's sharing, and that'll be moderated by one of our co-chairs, Dr. Precious Simba at Stellenbosch University. And then we welcome questions in chat, further discussions after that, and then also next week. So Dr. George, you're getting a question in chat. If you could please say the name of your network again.
I did post the...
Yeah, thank you so much. Indeed, I've just also sent the PPT. I hope it will be arriving in a minute. And yeah, the name is Africa Peace and Development Network. Africa Peace and Development Network, or in Swahili, Mtandao wa Amani na Maendeleo Afrika, as Vena put it earlier. And so I will also talk, of course, about this network, which I definitely also invite you to join us. And I'm grateful that Dala has been with us before and she gave us a talk. And the same applies to Precious. Simba also, she did the same. So it's an open forum. We are working with others who are building peace, like in Stellenbosch, UNESCO, and many other people are here today. So this is something that we want to grow and develop.
And I should just add, it's a phenomenal network, and the speakers, it's every week, right, Dr. George?
That's right.
Every
Wednesday, yes.
Every Wednesday, you can hear amazing speakers through this network.
Right. So I can see the screen is here. Are you able to make it wonderful that way? So thank you so much, and apologies again also for not being able to share this. So we can move to the next one, please. And
yes, here we go.
Yeah, thank you. So I begin by just a short background to peace building, but also intercultural competencies. Because first of all, I say, I can't tell when I began actually encountering, intercultural competencies. But definitely, as soon as I got into contact with people coming from a different cultural setting, cultural background, that's when issues began to emerge. And afterwards, I was lucky to go and teach in Germany, teach intercultural competencies for 1 year at the University of Fechter. And that's when I read more and discussed issues of intercultural competencies. And then during that time, I also read this manuscript known as Peacebuilding in a Globalized World. We can move to the next. And when I was reading this book, which was authored by two professors, Professor Cheng Liu and Egon Spiegel, they asked me to do some kind of editing. And for me, that was when I really read a book that was, seriously looking into peace studies and peace research, peace activism. And this is important because we can move to the next one. I was later tasked to when I became the executive secretary of the Association of Catholic Universities and Higher Institutes of Africa and Madagascar, known as ACUIAM, in 2017. And in the meeting that took place actually in Nairobi, it was decided, there was this resolution that all Catholic universities should have a department of peace studies. But I wasn't really sure how to go about it. But luckily, through that book that I just mentioned by Egon Spiegel and Liu Cheng, I contacted Professor Egon Spiegel and to ask him, how can I go about this? So he invited me over to Germany. We can move to the next one, slide. And there, he also invited Professor Liu Cheng. So we came together and talked about how we can mainstream peace studies in Africa. And at that time, I had already created a theory known as People's Organizations Development Theory. And this theory simply stipulated that confronted with a development challenge, individuals seek change or transformation through organizing and networking. Of course, there is a difference between change and transformation. But during that meeting, we talked about a number of issues. We can move to the next one. They are very short slides. So in that meeting, we decided on a number of things that we could do together, the three of us. And later on, I generated another theory known as University Revitalization Theory. Also, this theory stipulated that institutions would achieve excellence if they recognized qualities in individuals, departments, and networks, both locally and internationally. Now, how this People's Organization Development Theory, the University Revitalization Theory, led to global peace as a program. Now, I began by recognizing my, should I say, incompetence or limited knowledge in peace studies. But because of this, and especially because of the prevalence of violent conflicts in Africa, which necessitated the resolution to mainstream peace studies in Africa, led to my first peace meeting in Germany that I've just mentioned. And that meeting that was held in 2018 and attended by Professor Egon Spiegel from Germany, Professor Cheng Liu, Nanjing University, China, and myself from Tanzania. We can move further. Now, during that meeting, we decided on 4 things. first of all, having an international peace conference, as well as a workshop or seminar in Tanzania, and then have a publication or a special issue on peace studies in Africa, and also have exchange programs. Now, actually, the following year, we had COVID setting in, so we couldn't really do much like exchange programs, but we embarked on publications. Now, as a result of the meeting, we invited Professor Lester R. Kurtz from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia, USA, to join us. And therefore, we completed a small team of 4 people. So whenever I look at the 4 of us, I see more than just 4 individuals. I see 4 countries. I see Germany, I see China, I see USA, I see Tanzania. And we can move on. And well, we can see that the 4 of us are now behind global peace. So this is the Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa. This is our Wednesday program where we discuss issues of peace and sustainability around the world and across Africa. But also we founded MAMA, which this is the Africa Peace and Development Network that we mentioned in Swahili as Mtandao wa Amani na Maendeleo Afrika. Now, there's something special about this group because I see 4 people, but I see 4 countries being represented here. And we can, actually, if you look closely at the logos, later on, more people were invited, they joined us. We have Universidad de Congreso, Argentina. We have the International Federation of Catholic Universities. We've got the International Peace Research Association and many other organizations working together with us. We can move to the next one, please. Now, I want us to imagine a little bit. If these 4 countries that I've just mentioned, Germany, Tanzania, USA, China, if they united in any peace-building effort in our world today, what an impact would that, have? I think that the war in Congo would stop. The war in Sudan would end. The war in Ukraine would be over, and Palestine would be free. Indeed, over and beyond seeing the 4 of us representing 4 countries, we represent in a very small way 4 continents. So we are growing almost from very little, almost from nothing. But I can see that because we decided to work on one common goal, we agreed through dialogue, through consultation, we have now this network. And so these continents, of course, are Europe, represented by Germany, but could be any other country, Asia by China, but that could be another country, America, USA, and Africa, Tanzania. Imagine if these 4 continents united in any peace-building effort, what an impact would they have in the world? I would say climate change will be reversed, violent conflicts will be resolved, underdevelopment will be addressed, human dignity will be restored, pandemics will be minimized, young people would be educated. But then we need a resolve, we need to act together, we need a theory to guide us do that. Next, please. The 4 people, 4 countries, and 4 continents are a small representation of a much larger world. It is due to this smallness that made us establish an academic program known as Global Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, or in short, Global Peace, and that was since 2021. To date, many people from many more countries have joined us. I'm grateful for their faithfulness to our common goal. Now, Global Peace is a series of weekly academic and professional discourses on peace education, peace research, and peace activism as well as on the question of sustainable development. And global peace events take place every Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. East African time, Dar es Salaam, Kampala, Nairobi, via Zoom. Next, please. Now, in 2022, we established the Africa Peace and Development Network, MAMA, derived from the Swahili translation, Mtandao wa Amani na Maendeleo Afrika. Using Swahili is quite also deliberate because most of the knowledge we have is in other languages, and African languages particularly are not always so promoted. So we are trying also to promote Swahili because also that promotes our cultures as well. 2 books have been published, and the 3rd one is expected this year. Over 150 webinars have been organized. 1 international conference has been organized, both online and physical. Next, please. So far, MAMA has had 150 speakers to date. 70% of the speakers are university professors. Speakers have come from over 40 countries, and so far the majority of speakers are male, but we are conscious of gender. And therefore, we'd like to invite more women also to speak to us. Next, please. So I want to make this, to connect these 2 things, the role of intercultural competencies, the establishment of MAMA, and theory building. Well, I began by teaching intercultural competencies in theory. Now I see myself trying to practice it. A good sign of functioning intercultural competencies was the agreement among the 4 of us coming from 4 different countries and 4 different continents, extending our network to over 40 countries. Okay. Yeah. I just clicked on something that just appeared on the screen. So which competencies are we now talking about? First of all, I don't know, we can go back 1 slide back, please. Yes, thank you. So I was saying I began by teaching intercultural competencies in theory. Now I see, that a functioning intercultural competence from the agreement among us, but also extending our network to over 40 countries only in terms of speakers, required knowledge, skills, competencies, values, attitudes, and acting professionally. Now, of course, I talk about speakers, but participants, are equally, important, and they make very useful contributions. And well, today one is a speaker, that tomorrow is a participant. So even our speakers also become participants and vice versa. Next, please. Now, which competencies are we talking about? First of all, recognizing one's limitations. As I said, that I wasn't an expert, and I'm still not an expert. I'm still learning. But as they say in philosophy, that it begins in wonder by asking questions. I don't know this, but somebody else knows, and therefore I can go to this person and get support, get aid, get advice. Recognizing the strength in the other person, that's very important. But also promoting that which is for the common good. The common good. And for us, particularly in Africa, these terms are very common, Ubuntu and Ujamaa. And I want to emphasize that, Ujamaa is universal brotherhood or sisterhood. You don't have to be related to somebody to call this person a brother or sister. Or a human being. A human being is a human being wherever you find them. Then collaborating with others to promote the common good despite cultural, ideological, religious, academic, or gender differences. Recognizing our differences as our strength, and having the will and courage to change and to transform. Because sometimes you say, okay, this is too much for us. We can't solve the conflicts that are going on in Africa, or we can't, solve the problems going on in the world. But if there is this will, there is this courage and the resolve to work together, we can make an impact. Next, please. Now, the theory that I mentioned, the People's Organizations Development Theory, or PODT, it is in 4 stages, but it begins with problem identification. And in this theory, for example, we can talk about conflicts in Africa, such as DRC, Sudan, South Sudan, etc. Now, in the first stage, I ask myself, can I solve these conflicts single-handedly? The honest answer is I cannot. Well, this looks like a limitation. Then I ask myself, can someone else do it? Probably yes. But again, not alone. Next, please. However, by saying probably yes, I begin recognizing the strength in the other person. Then I ask myself, suppose we join hands, can we solve the conflicts? The answer is yes, we can. Once we assert our ability and resolve to solve the problem, then we move to the second stage of the PODT theory, namely organizing. Organizing, that's when people come together who have a common need, a common challenge, common vision to work on a certain problem. Next, please. Now, organizing entails planning for the realization of the common good. For example, the end of violent conflicts. We may refer to this as the beginning of the implementation of the peace-building process. Now, the question is, can we single-handedly resolve the conflicts? We on this call today, we as MAMA, we as Stellenbosch, we as UNESCO. The answer is probably not. Next, please. Remember, in this resolve, there's something which unites us, namely the promotion of the common good. Call it peace, call it sustainable development. What if we brought in other people and institutions which also promote the common good? Would we be able to resolve the conflicts? The answer is definitely yes, because there is strength in unity. This is very important. Now, the inclusion of people and institutions, which also promote the common good, is the essence of the third stage in the PODT theory, namely networking. It is at this stage, at this networking stage, that MAMA reaches out to other people, to other institutions and other networks to promote the common good, peace building and sustainable development. It is at this networking stage that MAMA seeks to cooperation with local and international organizations such as UNESCO, the International Peace Research Association, the International Federation of Catholic Universities, and many others. MAMA seeks to collaborate with you. In this theory, networking is the last stage towards transformation. And by transformation, we mean the change from violence to non-violence, from violent conflicts to sustainable peace and development. However, let's make it clear that even if networking is a necessary condition for transformation, it is by no means sufficient. Networking should leverage intercultural competences, which entail lifelong education at both individual and institutional level. That is why in MAMA, we prioritize peace research, peace education, and peace activism. I would like to conclude by showing that the People's Organizations Development Theory gives us a methodology for transformation. Transformation from violent conflicts to peace through 3 stages. Problem identification, like what is the question, what is the matter we need to address? And then organizing around solving that problem that we have identified. And then working together with others, that is networking, with other people, with other institutions who are going to support our idea. Because you can also network with people or organizations that maybe go against what you are interested in doing. Therefore, you need also to work with people who, well, yeah, support what you are doing, insofar as you agree that it is for the common good of humanity, regardless of where you stand. Next, please. So I would like to say, never undermine the power of an individual. Each human being should be respected. Each one has got something to say. Everybody has something to contribute. And we should not take a limitation as a weakness, but it's an opportunity to grow. We have a number of differences, but our differences are not barriers, but bridges for collaboration. We can learn from people of all cultures. And no culture definitely is, superior to the other. They are simply different. There is more that unites us than divides us. So probably we should also look at that which unites us. And I would say that no country or individual is developed unless the whole world is developed. So together we can make peace through Ujamaa, through Ubuntu, and through non-violence. Next, please. So I've talked briefly about how I came into contact with intercultural competencies and how we built on the People's Organizations Development Theory to build a network known as MAMA, Africa Peace and Development Network. But something that has been inspiring me throughout the time we started really our network is that I've seen a lot of respect for everybody on the call, everybody who participates in our webinars or who publishes with us. You can see that we value every human being, and without having any demarcations or limitations. Of course, respect also goes with open-mindedness, because sometimes we'd like to work with people because they think like us, because they look like us, because they come from our own area, they've got a certain political orientation. But if you are open to everybody, you can learn even from those who are so radically different to what you believe in. So open-mindedness is very important. Inclusiveness, as we say in the Sustainable Development Goals, no one should be left behind. And therefore, we include, everybody. But also we prioritize the common good. And we've just mentioned the common good being peace, being sustainable development. And there are so many other common goods. And of course, we do this through non-violence. So in short, I would say these are the key competencies that I've touched upon, and I can see these behind our MAMA network, but these definitely also will apply to many other networks, definitely for UNESCO and many other organizations. These competencies are really necessary. Next, please. So I'd like to thank you so much for your attention. And now, of course, I've got my contacts there. I can also put them in chat later. But I would like to thank you once again Werner and Dala, Precious and all, for inviting me to talk to you, share my reflections on these aspects of intercultural competencies through theory building, and also the establishment of the Africa Peace and Development Network. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for that, Dr. Mutalemwa. That was incredible. And we have quite a bit of questions for you in the chat. The first one was, someone was asking if you could talk a little bit about how important African history is for this work, especially as you teach young students.
Yeah, thank you so much indeed for that excellent question. History gives us an idea and gives us tools to understand our origins, to understand developments. And so therefore, you cannot really talk about peace building, talk about development without actually going into history, because history is informing us, informing the present. It's also informing the future. And therefore, it's important to be aware. There are so many good things that happened in history. Many of them, technological development, for example, we had here in Africa lots of platforms where peace building, for example, was, was developed and inculcated and instilled in young people's hearts and minds, and the Baraza, etc., and the unity of Africa, etc. That's part of very good history. But of course, also we had, colonialism, so capitalism, everything like that, which also affected negatively the continent in Africa. Therefore, the question of history is very important. And for me, whenever I teach, definitely I teach development studies. I go through, the First World War, the Second World War, even before, actually, even the time of the colonial era, so that we know where we came from, so we can understand where we are. Because some of the things really, kind of repeat themselves. Like history tends to repeat itself. Some of the things that we fought in the past are here today, and we are fighting them, or maybe they come in a different fashion. So yeah, the role of history, African history, is very important. And unfortunately, you find that not many people know it, because probably in schools, there's not much emphasis on African history, but that's absolutely essential.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you. Thank you about that. And even the touch to say how African history is really not well represented even in school curricula. That's an important, I think, point. There's another question here that says, and there are several, could you please share a real-life example of how this theory or approach has been used to help resolve violent conflict? So maybe that connection between theory and practice.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Giving a concrete example is not easy. By saying that somebody or some institutions have gone through this theory. First of all, it's, well, fairly new, since 2015. So I cannot say, okay, this place, this country have, has used this theory to solve a problem. But it's a tool. It's a tool that we have, that can help us to solve the problems that we have. For example, we have a certain problem, a war, and then, of course, this is a problem now, it's known. We have identified it. It's easily identifiable anyway. But then how do we organize ourselves to solve that problem? I think so far we stop there, because as we try to organize around it, some people are, should I say, disorganizing, doing things contrary to what we wanted to do to stop the war. That's why so many wars have been going on for years, for decades, because at this organizing stage, we haven't really made great progress. But as a theory, I don't see any other way that we can solve these conflicts if we do not come together. And of course, also, because organizing in this theory is the second stage after problem identification, organizing, and then networking. Now, if the organizing stage isn't, strong, then even networking is becoming almost impossible, because networking has to build on this organizing that we have done. So this is a theory, it's a method, but it's a tool that can help us solve problems. I hope that we can implement it. Maybe UNESCO can take the lead, or probably, of course, it is being done, but maybe, as I just put it, that there are some forces that go against, organizing. For example, if you talk about the situation in the DRC, you have a number of countries, each one is trying to, tap into the resources that they have. But now we find that countries now are fighting each other. So this, the fighting does not make people come together, but they separate, they put people apart, set them apart. But if we come together, I believe strongly that we can solve the problems that we have today.
Maybe if we have time, I have a follow-up on that one. But someone else was asking, Dr. George, can you say a little bit more about Ujamaa, what it is, and, I think for some people, it's a fairly new concept. I think for other people, especially those who are very familiar with East Africa, this is a very common concept. But can you say a little bit about it and what it is? And
yeah, thank you so much. Ujamaa is a Swahili word, which is translated as familyhood, or Jamaa is a relative, somebody, who belongs to your a kin, brother, sister, uncle, and niece, nephew, grandmother, grandfather, child, all these are relatives. So this concept actually was popularized by Mwalimu Nyerere, who was the first president of Tanzania. And he wrote a lot. One of his books is called Ujamaa, so African Socialism. So what we have is just Ujamaa is an extension now, really an extended family, as it were, because normally we stop at the family level, but with Ujamaa, even neighbors now. And neighbors can be so close, but they can be also very far away. I'm here in Kenya or Tanzania, but my relatives are in South Africa, are in Spain, are in Canada, they are in Malaysia, they are everywhere, right? So that was this common, this universal brotherhood, that we are all related. And if we are related, normally you don't do harm to a relative of yours. you know, because whatever happens to a relative, you know, that affects you directly. You've got to be concerned. And so Ujamaa has got its own values, you know. One of them is unity, cooperation, dignity, caring for others. So once you have this spirit, as it were, or in fact a philosophy where you take every human being to be your relative, then you cannot do harm to them. In fact, you like to see them progress, you know. You don't want to have your relatives who are not educated, relatives who are hungry, relatives who are ill, sick, you know, who have no shelter. So this is, I think, an interesting idea, which actually we tried here in Tanzania to practice under Nyerere. But then, unfortunately, it didn't quite materialize, although, you know, at least in terms of values, you can see you Tanzanians even speaking the same language, you know, Swahili, out of 120, but let's have one common Ujamaa language, Swahili, right? Although we couldn't succeed economically very much because there were other forces. Because as you try to practice Ujamaa, somebody's coming with privatization, you know, with competition. Now sharing is not possible. It's now competition, etc. So Ujamaa is this kind of universal brotherhood, or sisterhood, where all people are equal. Right.
I for one am very excited about the notion of Ujamaa and just how it connects with notions of Ubuntu and even ideas of centering human dignity and universal kinship, and this care that we ought to give out to all those we encounter. So it's a very rich concept, and thank you for sharing on that. Somebody else is asking, when is the next Mama conference, and any details that you can share around that?
Yeah, thank you very much. We are thinking about it, but it hasn't been planned yet. If we are lucky, we might, you know, organize it next year, but we need to plan for that. Now we still have a number of things to sort out, especially with our publications. So, but we should be, because we'll be actually turning 5 years. That would have been nice to have an international conference.
Yeah.
The last one was in Tanzania last year, which was attended by so many people, including some from South Africa, etc., from DUT and many other countries. So we are grateful that we are progressing.
Fantastic. Definitely the next one. I think our chair I would love to be part of that. There's another question here. I think this will be the last one. There's quite a lot that were left over. I think we'll carry those forward to the meeting next week. Somebody's asking, how can the principles of Ubuntu and Ujamaa be meaningfully applied in culture contexts that are where these values are not traditionally embedded? How do we transpose these ideas, I guess?
Well, it's a very good question. And I believe and strongly think that these values, even if probably they are not discussed, they are not framed as Ubuntu or Ujamaa, I can see that they are present actually in all cultures, you know. If I begin by Ubuntu, for those whose this term is new, it's from the Bantu group of languages. There's so many, you know, all the way from, I don't know, South Africa, you can go to Mozambique, you can go to Malawi, Tanzania, Congo, even up to Cameroon, Central Africa, you know. The Bantu group, they call a human being mtu, at least in Swahili, just to simplify things, a human being. So, and a human being is a human being because of, well, what they are, what makes us, you know. Of course, we are rational human beings, you know, but we are sociable. And so wherever you meet a person, actually, you meet mtu. So every one of us, you know, is a human being. And something which is expected of you as a human being, that is utu, that is ubuntu, you know. So I don't see any other culture which says, no, you know, here we shouldn't really be human beings, it should be different, it should be something else. Of course, the question of cooperation, again, it might be limited in maybe the way we practice it, but I see that at least in many places that I've been to, you see people working together. Could be social events, could be political events, you know, people are teaming up. They are teaming up. This is the Ujamaa, the Harambee cooperation spirit. So I can see that everywhere this is practiced, unless somebody is living alone somewhere. But, you know, maybe they will also, even if they live alone, they still, I think, yearn to be with others, to share, you know, joys, to share experiences. So we are, as some people put it, social animals, you know, but more than that, we are human beings. We are rational beings. So I think Ubuntu and Ujamaa actually would work in all cultures. The emphasis might be different, but I don't see how you can live without Ubuntu, you know, and also without Ujamaa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Mutalemwa. Thank you for your insights and the great work that you're doing. I've shared his contact. If you want to join the network or just find out the great work that they do, they meet every week. Please connect with him. I find your network is one of the most efficient I've ever seen. The way you connect every week, share videos, and it's quite an active community. And also, we have shared our own chair's email if you want to get updates from us about our webinars and as well as all the events that we host. But more than that, some of the questions that we have here, maybe I'll just post them to you. If you have any other reflections, maybe in writing, we can share them next week when the working group meets. But thank you, colleagues, friends from all over the world. Thank you for yet again joining us for this insightful webinar where we share insights on intercultural competencies from mostly from Africa and different parts of Africa, different scholars, different perspectives, as we share the richness of not only our continent, but richness in intercultural competencies. So thank you so much. It is 4 minutes past. Apologies that we've overshot the time. But I will end it here. Werner, Dala, any last words before we
Just a
end
huge
the
thank you
webinar?
again to Dr. George for this amazing discussion today and the work that you're doing on the continent. Thank you, Dr. Precious, for leading us in this discussion, and to all of you for joining us today. And we hope you'll join us again next week at this time for our continued discussion. There's so many questions that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet. And then also please join us again August 20 for our next monthly webinar. And we hope to see many of you in person in Rabat at the end of September. So thank you again so much, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.
All right, bye everyone.